I follow. Today is a distinct difference after that speech. I have a little bit of flop sweat already, and I just took the stage. First of all, I want to say thank you to the Log Cabin Republicans. This is a great event. It's been really nice for me to meet some of the people that have called my show. Jared from Boulder's here. I'm super stoked. Yeah, love you. But more importantly, just for continuing to let people know that the Republican Party is not the party of old white men. Now, granted, there's some great old white men right over there. I've enjoyed my time immensely. But there's so much more to the party. We all know it, and it's really nice that you guys are out there kind of demonstrating that every single day. So it's my pleasure. Today we're going to have the second roundtable. We're going to talk to some great women about some serious stuff. We're going to talk economics. We're going to talk crime. And then we're going to have Rachel back up here to fire everybody back up again. I'd like to welcome to the stage the woman who was recently, this week, named by Time magazine a defender of election integrity. Yeah. Oddly, our current Secretary of State not mentioned in the same article. But they mentioned Pam Anderson for her work. She is running to be a fair, unbiased, and wonderful, competent Secretary of State. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Pam Anderson to the stage. I know. Go ahead. All right, you already heard from her. You're going to hear from her again, and hopefully you're going to be hearing from her once a month on my program when she becomes governor, because our current governor is a giant puss and will not come on my show. I had to do something. Rachel was that good, okay? Just kidding. Heidi Ganahl, welcome back up to the stage. Our next governor, Heidi Ganahl. Oh, there we go. And now, I just heard Barbara on my friend Deb Flores' show the other day, and she is an impressive example of someone who can clearly articulate why conservative policies work. Ladies and gentlemen, Barbara Kirkmeyer is running for the U.S. Congress, Congressional District 8. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm the only woman that's a Republican senator.
Oh, the only woman who's a Republican senator as well, but we won't get stuck on that because you're going to be moving to Congress. Okay. That's the assumed close. And now running for trustee in the beautiful town of Monument, welcome Darcy. And Darcy, I don't know how to say your last name, and I should, and I'm really deeply embarrassed, and Rachel's making me look even worse. Welcome, Darcy. Is it Schoening? Schoening. I would have murdered that, so thank you. To the stage. You know, I moved here 9 years ago, and when I moved out here, all of my friends said, it's for the weed, isn't it? And I said, no, Denver, Colorado, it's the most beautiful place I've ever been. The streets are clean. You never feel unsafe. You can walk around downtown and not worry about really anything. I thought it was the most magical place in the world. And just 9 years later, 9 years is all it took for us to have homeless camps all over downtown Denver, for people to have human feces thrown at them as they walk down the 16th Street Mall or wherever it is. And I want to know, and we're going to start with Heidi because we're going to go top, and then we're going to work our way down right to the beautiful town of Monument. But I want to start with you, Heidi, because you and I have had long conversations about this. I feel like until you can get control of the crime, nothing else matters. So what do you do as governor for that?
Well, we clean house. We basically replace the leadership at corrections, the Department of Justice, the Department of Public Safety. We replace the parole board, as many people as we can. We have a governor who is a law and order governor who doesn't tolerate this stuff happening on our streets. We've got to cancel our sanctuary status so that we stop the flow of fentanyl across the Colorado border. Right now, ICE agents and law enforcement tell me they have no ability to stop what's going on. And I'll tell you what, fentanyl is the #1 issue in our state. It is killing our kids, killing them. And Jared Polis is responsible for that. He decriminalized fentanyl. He won't take responsibility for it. He won't stand up to the drug dealers. We've got to fix this. It is killing our children.
Jared Polis is a drug dealer!
I'm with you. Jared Polis is a con man. Yeah. He's lying to the people of Colorado, and he's not doing what's right for our children.
I'm going to go to Pam. Pam is running for Secretary of State. Now, as Secretary of State, you're not necessarily going to oversee anything specifically related to crime, but we are all following with great interest a crime that may have been committed by a former clerk. So let me just go to the heart of the matter. We are suffering a bit of a crisis of confidence in Colorado. A lot of Republicans don't have faith in the system, and we have Democrats in charge that don't seem interested in even any kind of assurances or stop guard gates to make it easy to vote and hard to cheat. How do you, as Secretary of State, begin to breach that gap, first of all, and then also ensure or let people know that our election integrity is very strong?
Thanks for making the connection to safety to elections, because I love that, because I love to talk about it. But I do want to give a bit of a shout out, because there's some of our candidates have a little bit of something in common. Heidi, me, Joe, all our dads are retired law enforcement. All of us. Wow. So that tells you where this public safety value is very strong in our slate of candidates. And I can tell you that I'm concerned about the things that I'm hearing from the people that I'm knocking doors on and talking to them about. My son, who worked in the COVID lab and microbiology lab at National Jewish during the pandemic, his catalytic converter was stolen from his 1997 Jeep Cherokee. This kid is just out of college, not making a lot of money, doing public service. So it's these types of things that impact people. But you're right, another piece of public safety is confidence in our elections. And I'm running against a candidate who uses the platform to elevate their own political career over Coloradans. So for example, spending $4 million of one-time federal funding during COVID and this past summer to elevate our own profile with commercials, instead of sending it to access and security for our voting systems. We must stand up against mis and disinformation. I agree with that. That is a center point of my campaign. We must, as candidates and elected officials, not use our democracy for short-term political gain, whether you're on the left or on the right. And why we need to elect a professional with an experience like mine, I've about 20 years of doing it, is that I will stand up, sometimes against my own party, for Coloradans, when my opponent was silent when the Democrats spent millions of dollars against Republican candidates in our primary to elevate candidates that were sending out mis and disinformation. So integrity also means the truth. And I think that's incredibly important, to elevate people that are willing to fight for your constitutional right and support like paper ballots and audits of the paper ballots and signature verification audits and voter list audits. Two things can be true at once. We can have fair, free and easy access to our constitutional rights, and we can have security and accuracy. And that's what I stand for.
Now, Barbara, if you join the U.S. Congress, when you join the U.S. Congress, you have a whole different set of issues that are contributing to our crime. As Heidi mentioned, we have a significant issue at the border with fentanyl and illegal immigration. We recently just had someone who was killed in an accident with someone who shouldn't have been in the country at all. These kind of stories are really gaining traction due to a magical bit of political theater by Ron DeSantis. I just want to give a big shout out to Ron for that one. Just as a case in point, I watched all of the major news networks the day after the Martha Stewart 50, as I've called them, or Martha Vineyard 50. Same thing, Martha was probably there. She knitted them all in Afghan, but no. But now people were talking about the border again. I feel like this might be the best chance in a long chance if there are Republicans who can take the House and the Senate. Where are you on this?
On this side. But you're exactly right. It's about securing the border. And fentanyl is the #1 killer of young adults between 18 and 45 across this nation. That's how serious it's gotten. And Heidi's correct. Our governor, talk about weak. He came out last December. I'm going to talk a little bit about the state first, if you don't mind. Came out last December and said, we got to do something about that law we passed in 2019. The law that made 4 grams of fentanyl possession a misdemeanor. We might as well said 4 grams of distribution of fentanyl is a misdemeanor. because that's what happened. In a 2-year period after that law passed, a 382% increase in fentanyl overdose in Colorado. We're number 2. We do not want to be number 1. But Polis, big talker at the State of the State address, talked about fentanyl, and we're going to do something about it. They didn't listen to law enforcement. They didn't do anything about it. It's still a misdemeanor to carry around up to 1 gram of fentanyl. Our Attorney General, big talker in December, come February and March, well, you just can't carry around pure fentanyl. He knows that's not even what happens. So it's just a scam. We didn't listen to law enforcement. And where's the fentanyl coming from? It comes from China, goes to Mexico, comes straight across our southern border. In fact, I was down at the southern border about 3 weeks ago talking to border agents who feel totally abandoned by this administration. They are demoralized. Much like what happened in our state when Senate Bill 217 passed. You know, the one that went after law enforcement and said, we don't trust you anymore, we don't need you. You know, we went through COVID and we talked about our first responders being the most important people in the world, right? And then all of a sudden our law enforcement agents, our law enforcement officers, we just passed 217, took away their qualified immunity. Do you know what that means? That means when they're walking out the door in the morning to go to their job and their families are worried whether or not they're going to return, now they all are worried about whether or not someone's going to sue them and they're going to lose their house. That's what that means. So we need to stop coddling criminals. But when it comes to, and my opponent's one of the biggest coddlers there is, and so is yours. But anyways, but securing the border is an absolute. So when I was at the border 3 weeks ago talking to the border agents, they were telling us that just in this year alone, so this was basically in the first 8 months of this year, they had seized close to 11,000 pounds of pure fentanyl. Now 2 pounds has the potential to kill 500,000 people. That's what they had seized. Think how much more came across the border.
Yeah.
5 million pills. They picked up 5 million pills coming across the border, seized 5 million pills. Think how many they didn't seize. That's the problem. And it's not just any longer that it's coming across from Mexico. We have drug cartels that are involved. They've got people coming from Honduras, El Salvador, Venezuela, all coming across the border, and it's all about drugs. How fast do we get across the border? How fast do we get out of there? Because we have a catch and release program at the border. And here. You're correct. So that's true.
So it sounds like this is going to be a priority?
It is a priority.
Yeah.
So we have to secure the border, we have to build the wall.
Yep.
Let's get it done. We
Yep.
need to quit letting people come through our backyard and make everybody come through the front.
All right, Darcy, Monument is a small outlying town. It's the cutest little place. If you've never stopped in Monument, you should. But are you guys starting to see a difference? Is Monument changing as we're seeing the difference in the larger metro areas?
Monument is definitely changing. So about 2 or 3 nights ago, some friends who live in my community, which is a really nice, quiet community on the south side of Monument, had their catalytic converters taken in the middle of the night. Some had their wheels taken. And it was about 7 or 8 cars total, about 2 blocks from my house. What I attribute that to is the fact that there are people that are now coming to towns like Monument because they know that it's quiet, they know that it's safe, and they're sleeping in their cars in the gas stations. They're urban camping. The old saying is true, if you build it, they will come. We don't need to be building homeless shelters and welcoming criminals into Monument. We need to be pushing them along their way somewhere else. So the way that I see my responsibility is, we know Polis is worthless. We know the Democrat legislators are worthless. So I, with my constituents, with my residents, I'm the stopgap between Polis and the worthless Democrat legislator. So you want to go to Denver and do those things, steal catalytic converters, you want to sleep in a tent at the gas station, you do that. but you're not going to do it in Monument. And we need more conservative towns. What'd you say?
Don't want to Denver.
Yeah, exactly.
Talk to the mayor.
I'll talk to your mayor while I'm we need more conservative towns to start standing up and saying, this isn't gonna happen here. Regardless of what the legislator's doing or what the governor's doing, this isn't good enough for my residents, and I'm gonna do something about it. So I sometimes on Friday nights, I take a couple extra minutes and I drive through town and I see what's going on. I roll my windows down like the police officers do, and I listen for noises that are abnormal. I look for people that don't belong in town, and when I see them, I make sure that they're removed. Because again, I am the stopgap between those people, those crimes, that fentanyl, and my children, and your children.
I want to pivot just a little bit because we only have a little bit of time left, but we've got an economy right now that we're seeing higher inflation in Colorado than we're seeing nationally. And it's so good nationally. I think my batteries are running out. I don't know. But we've got, oh, here we go. We've got, well, hello, did it break over there?
Where's A-Rod?
I know. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, wait. You can? I'm loud anyway. All right, so we're going to try this again. The economy, very, very quickly. Again, Pam, you oversee, when you become Secretary of State, we're going to do the assume close for everyone. What do you do to streamline our economic situation? As a person whose job will also be to help businesses come to fruition in Colorado, what do you see on that front in the Secretary of State's office?
Yeah, again, I want to give a shout out because so many of the candidates are entrepreneurs, business owners like myself. My husband and I own small business manufacturing, and I also go around the country with my business. But the business side for the Secretary of State's office is about enhancing commerce and supporting our businesses, our nonprofits, and our charity. So the first thing I'll do as the Secretary of State is show up, because during COVID, she closed the offices for over 2 years. 2 years, and I've heard from charities and businesses at the time when it was the most difficult time for our businesses and our charities, they weren't getting responses. They weren't hearing from the Secretary of State. They weren't getting things deployed that they needed. And so I will show up, stay open, and like I did with my county clerks, I will work on the front lines with businesses to help them.
All right, Heidi, I know that you and I have had long conversations about your plans. Bullet point in 30 seconds how you're going to fix Colorado's economy.
Yeah, I'm going to reduce red tape, reduce taxes, reduce fees. Call fees what they are, taxes. Move them into the general fund if possible. Take us to zero income tax over 2 terms. Hopefully you'll give me 2 terms to do that. And cut the gas tax in half and still fix the roads. And finally, I'm going to take 260, the transportation bill, back to the voters of Colorado and ask them if we can get approval for specific projects and move the money away from the climate change pet projects into actually fixing the roads.
Woo! Sorry. Barbara, we are seeing insane levels of inflation. The Fed is now yanking up interest rates. It is my prediction and the prediction of many others we're headed for recession. So when you join Congress next year, what do you like to see, or would you like to see, in the way of anything from Congress when it comes to the economy?
Sure, and I believe we are in a recession. We need to stop spending. We don't have a revenue problem, we have an expenditure problem. And we need to figure out how to cut taxes. We need to quit moving debt over to taxpayers, onto taxpayers with the student loan debt repayment process. We need to quit increasing our deficit. We're at a over $30 trillion deficit. $30 trillion. That's $90,000 for every man, woman, and child in the United States in debt. We're in a tailspin. We're running our country into bankruptcy. And we actually need to get a budget that is balanced because we don't have one at the federal level.
And Darcy, a smaller community, do you feel, how is the economy in Monument doing? And as a member of the trustee, or being a trustee for the town, what is your responsibility to the people of Monument?
That's a really good question. So everything obviously trickles down, and it's my belief, number one, the government's not here to help you. They're just not. And number two, we can't print our way into a better economy. We have to stop printing money. All these grants that are coming through, whether it's the green energy grants, the housing grants, they're mostly led by Democrats, but let's be honest, some of the Republicans have signed on to those as well. They're printing money, and that's what's causing us to have such high inflation. So when we go to the gas pumps, we go to the grocery store in Monument, we can thank our legislators for that. So I stand in the way of a lot of those terrible grants, and I read every single page of those grants. Not only are they mostly terrible because they contribute to inflation and they're poorly written, but they usually have strings attached to that we have to be very, very careful of.
Ladies, it is with kind of a from my lips to God's ears that you are all sworn into office in this next election cycle, because we deserve people who have the passion that all of you have, that have the grasp on the issues and the ability to do the job. I think all of you will. Please, don't just vote. Don't just give them money. Give them money. But there's a lot of data out there that says if you personally talk to your family, friends, and neighbors, if you talk to the people you go to church with, if you talk to the women at your book club, if you just say, hey, are you happy with how things are going? Who are you going to vote for? It doesn't have to be an argument. It can just be a conversation. That has far more impact than any yard sign, than any TV ad, than any radio ad. You are more powerful than all of that put together. But please spend your money at KOA Radio if you do buy. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.